We were AI before AI was cool. Uh,
Right. Welcome back, folks, to the VRNation Station podcast. This is Jamie Hansen, your lovable Wisconsin cheesehead here in beautiful Marinette, Wisconsin. We're in the northern office today. So we're very excited. I've got a great guest, Richie Khandelwal, president of PriceLabs, which honestly, I'm very excited about this. We had a little bit of hard time connecting because the two of us have all sorts of fun things when it comes to random marketing people hitting our calendars. So we had a little laugh about that one. But Richie, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for being here. Maybe tell the folks a little bit about yourself, and then maybe a little bit about PriceLabs.
Firstly, thank you for having me, Jamie. Really excited. And I know it took us a while to coordinate, but excited we are here. I am a co-founder at PriceLabs. We do dynamic pricing for vacation rentals. That's what we're well known for. And over the last few years, we have branched more and more from it. So, quick background about myself: engineer by training, worked in oil and gas for a few years
Wow.
on the rigs and refineries, and then end up doing my MBA and starting PriceLabs way back in 2014. So almost going up on 12 years here, which feels like crazy. It feels like yesterday, but coming up on 12 years here. And yeah, I do our go-to-market, our sales, our support, operations kind of actions.
Excellent. That's terrific. What a cool story. So you started in the oil industry. I don't ever hear that. Like I should say I hear that, but it's usually when I'm standing in a bar in Wyoming, not necessarily to somebody in India. So that's really cool. Okay. And then you got your MBA and then you switched. So were you a petroleum engineer, or what kind
I,
of engineer were you?
I was a materials engineer.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
materials.
So essentially, you're making complicated decisions about, well, micro complicated decisions about what material to put in so that it lasts, right? And you're
Right.
always trying to be, because these are mega projects, like several tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, right? But a small change can mean a
Lots
change
of
of
money.
$100 million, right?
Yes.
And so we're
Lots of money.
spending a lot of engineering hours figuring out if your pipe should be, I don't know, 6 inches or 4.5 inches or something else.
Right.
Should be steel, should be something else. It's just fascinating
A
stuff
lot
that
of
we do.
detail. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's really interesting, and I could see how that. I mean, I think conceptually, I can see how that would translate over to software as a service. So that's interesting. Well, let's talk a little bit about PriceLabs. So, again, you started this business in 2014. Why revenue management? Like, what about revenue management really said, hey, this is an opportunity. Let's get in front of it. Like, what started that idea?
Yeah, so landed into it, Jamie, in 2014. Short-term rental market, or Airbnb back then, was booming,
Right.
and I had a spare bedroom that I had on Airbnb, and I realized that I was not pricing it too well. And then I asked around, and either people were just copying someone else's rates or trying to build something, but it just wasn't working, right? It was like just
Right.
we were just guessing. And so we saw that gap, and it wasn't like we had a grand vision. It was just like, oh, there's a gap. I'm an engineer. I know some other engineer friends. Let's build a solution that could be useful to me and to probably a few people. And that's kind of how we got here.
Awesome. That is cool. It's really funny, as I've talked to so many folks throughout the industry, and the origin stories are all relatively the same. It's like, yeah, I was doing this other thing, and then I had a short-term rental, and it was Airbnb, and it's like, God, there's just a better way to do it. And then next thing I know, it's like 10 years later, like I've spun up this company, and here we are. It's like that's
Pretty much.
great. That's really great. Well, I tell you what, let's jump in a little bit because you guys have a lot of really cool things going on at Price Labs.
Yeah.
Maybe let's talk about the revenue management aspect. I know that in my history, my good friend Maureen is my revenue manager, and she has taught me a lot. She's taught me a lot about pricing, a lot about, revenue management. But I'd love to hear it from your side of the house. Like how maybe tell me a little bit about revenue management from your perspective.
Yeah. So revenue management, we think of it as a broader discipline, right? Um, it's broader discipline. It's not just about pricing where we started, which is dynamic pricing, right? But it is a broader discipline. Having said that, dynamic pricing becomes like the foundation of it. Till the time you have then not don't have dynamic pricing, you can't really do anything. And oftentimes people confuse what dynamic pricing means, right? People say dynamic pricing, oh, I have my seasonal rates and I have my weekday rates and weekend rates and some low season rates, and I have a dynamic pricing, right? That's not really what it actually means. That's like, yes, you don't have flat pricing. You may have
Right.
some steps in your pricing, right? But dynamic pricing is really about, am I reacting to market, to my own inventory, how it's booking, to what's happening, maybe even macroeconomically, right? Am I reacting to that real time and fast enough, right? And that's what we think of as dynamic when we think of. So yeah, so going back to your question on revenue management, dynamic pricing, which is the foundation, that is where we think and we play, and then over years we've added other tooling to it. You when you think of revenue management, you don't just think of dynamic pricing. You also think of, oh, where am I putting it on, right? When I put it on, say, an Airbnb or VRBO or Booking.com or my own website, do I have the right photos? Do I have the right description, etc., right? And from there, there are a slew of other places that you can get into as well.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think back of the struggles that I personally had with like dynamic pricing, especially around setting the price and then identifying when I would actually vary those prices, right? Like that, those were like, it was like such a learning curve for me to try and wrap my head around it because I would always go, oh, well, let's take a look at my competition in this area and just see what they're pricing at. And then it was just like, well, they're pricing so low that, they're not filled either. Like, doesn't make any sense. Like the logic to it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily fit. So how do you guys come up with the concept, like being able to comfortably say, right? Because a lot of people have, when I have this conversation with revenue management or about revenue management, um, people they struggle with the concept. Like, why would I be more here and less here? Like that's not intuitive. Why would I do that? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's because that's what Richie told me to do. So
Um, you know what? Before we get into how we do it, right? Let me give you one quick thing that we see from our data. You said, oh, I want to be cheaper than the competition or something like that. In the world of short-term rentals, where there is no third party that really validates. So, in hotels, it's a 5-star hotel or a 4-star hotel or a 3-star hotel, and you have certain expectations of what that star rating means, right? In
right,
vacation rentals, that does not exist, right? And so being cheaper does not necessarily mean you will get bookings. Being
right,
cheaper actually may come across as a trust signal to where, hey, the property in images looks great, but it is cheaper than everyone else. I wonder why that is. What skeletons are they hiding, right?
right,
Because there's no third party trust that gets built, right?
right,
So being cheaper is not always a great idea. The way we think about this, Jamie, is we ingest a lot of market data. So every day we look at what's happening on Airbnb, on VRBO, on Booking.com, in various parts of the world. And we take that and we ingest all of that market data. And then we look at where your property is, build a custom competitive set for that property. And then we try to understand what is happening in that competitive set, right? And what the historical things that have happened in that competitive set, because we've been doing this for 12 years, right?
right,
And so with that, we're able to build a model of the future almost, right? Where we say, hey, in the next 30 days, this is how we expect the world to evolve. In the next 90 days, this is how we expect the world to evolve. And in the next 365 days, this is how we expect the world to evolve, right? Now, the farther you go out, the lesser precision on it becomes, right? And so we add safety nets on that, right? But you're basically, from all of this, trying to understand every day, what did I do yesterday? What is the what did market do yesterday? What should I be doing today? When I thought about where the forecast would lie, is it there? Is it not there? Should I change it? Right? But
Right.
all rooted in knowing the historical markets for several years, right? And so that combination helps us think through and say, how should you be pricing any given day in future, and how should you be changing it every day? That
Got it.
makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But I guess, how do you, and I don't know if this is the secret sauce. So if I'm dipping into like, hey, this is how we do business, like
Of course.
that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's like I can't wrap my head around like how you ingest like the marketing data, right? So for example, when I was working with Cabino, we were in Island Park, Idaho, right? And I don't even know what's going on in Island Park, Idaho half the time, right? It's a small town. Hell, half their calendars aren't even up to date on their, like their Chamber of Commerce sites. So it's like, how do you find that data in a newer area? Like, how do you find it? Like, where does it come from?
Yeah. See, at a very base level, Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, that's a data set around the world that we've had for several years, going back. And so we know in every part of the world what has happened over the last few years. Right?
Sure.
So right from COVID to today, we know in every part of the world what every date looked like, what price did it get booked at, when did it get booked, how did it look like few days before the booking date. We understand that very, very thoroughly, right? And the second
Right.
thing that we're talking about is on the events side, right? And so we also build an events database where we think about two things. We know mega events that drive momentum, right? But also when we look at, say, Park Idaho, and I say, hey, in the last 4 years, tell me every time when the prices went up, right? Or the bookings went up, right? Now I can look at that, and then I can try to figure out what was it that drove that, right?
Right.
And that then allows me to then know in the future what am I going to do, right? And even if I don't fully know what is it that drove it in the past, I at least know it drove it in the
Right.
past, right? And so I know with that I can predict the future. Now I take that and I say, okay, July 15th is going to be a busy day. And that's what last 3 years have told me, right? When I was sitting on May 22nd, July 15th is going to be a busy day. That's what last few years have told me, right? But today, when I'm sitting on May 22nd, July 15th looks a little weak, right? So I will
Right.
then not give as much weightage to my historical understanding. I will reduce that weightage and say, oh, doesn't look as strong, but I still have enough days, so I'll decrease my understanding slightly, right? And then as I get closer, maybe I'll decrease, or maybe it was just like a weekend shift that happened, and so I'll increase or whatever, right? But you get the idea, right? So it
Yeah.
basically, we're trying to digest almost terabytes of data every month, condense that down into smaller and smaller pipelines, right?
Right.
Such that we can then automate all of these actions, right? It
Got it. So do you guys scrape the data off the sites, or are you pulling via API? Like, how do you get all that data?
we
That
scrape it.
seems like such a huge
We
thing. Okay.
we scrape all of the data, right? So I say we were AI before AI was cool.
Right.
Now,
Manual AI, right?
yeah. Because if you imagine, like, let's say today, when you think of any AI software that you think of, right? ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever else, right? They're scraping a ton of data off the web, right? Trying to build reinforcement learning on it, right? And so the next time when you ask the question, they're going to generate an answer, right?
Right.
And what we do is a hyper localized model of that, right? Just saying we scrape a certain part of the market, right? We digest that to build our understanding of the world, right? And so
Gotcha.
when you ask us an answer to saying what is the rate, what is a good rate to have tomorrow, that is what we generate. What is the good rate to have tomorrow, right? It,
Gotcha. So
you won't
you
believe this,
distill it.
Jamie.
So you're not culling a ton of information. You're culling very specific information by
Yeah,
distilling your data set.
yeah,
That's
because
pretty cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a specific model. 12 years ago, we put out our first marketing page and we said, "Hey, AI-driven pricing," right? And a lot of people said, "Wait, AI? I don't trust it. That does not make sense, right?" And so we said, AI is nothing but statistical modeling at the end of the day, to some extent,
Right.
right? And so we said data-driven statistical modeling to drive pricing, right? And so yeah, so it's been an interesting journey from that standpoint. Uh,
Yeah,
for the
I
last
can imagine. I can imagine. It's, even today, people are like, AI, I can't. And it's like, I hate to break this to you, but it's been in place for a while. Notice how your texts are finishing the sentence for you. Like, hey, it's here. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
yeah.
That's great. So let's maybe pivot a little bit the conversation and talk about marketing, like how, when it comes to, and I still have like it's difficult for me to wrap my head around because event pricing, right? So like you were saying that, hey, last 3 years we saw, this weekend in May is always hopping, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's because there's a festival down the road that has fans. Well, how do we take into account for that? But I think that goes back into the marketing aspect as well, because you should be able, as a property manager, to determine, like, hey, I've got a huge festival down the road and it sells out every year. We should be able to keep that in mind when we look at our revenue management. So how would a property manager use some of this price
Yeah.
management in
Yeah.
marketing?
So excellent question, right? And this is almost in some ways where we are headed, Jamie. Uh, we spent over the last 12 years building the best pricing engine in the industry, right? And as we worked deeply with property managers, right, we got the same questions that you are asking, right? Which is, all right, good pricing is great, but where else do I use it, right? How else do I
Right.
do it? Right? Whether you're a large property manager or small property manager, you're running a few different functions that are kind of interrelated to some extent, right? You're trying to do the pricing and making sure it is right. You're also trying to make sure you're visible, right? Because if you're not visible, then you could have
Doesn't
great
matter.
pricing, but
Right.
right. You're also then trying to watch numbers and say, am I stepping in the right direction? And then lastly, all of us have owners that we have to take care of, and so you're trying to make sure your owners are happy, right? So going back to your marketing, how do you think about marketing? We think about marketing as visibility, right? I, are you visible when something's happening? And here's the story on this, Jamie. About 2 years ago, my wife and I, we were in Paris for Summer Olympics, and this was unusually hot summer in Paris, right? And so Paris, it's not common for people to have air conditioning in their homes. Also, most of the homes are really old, right? And so they don't have inbuilt air conditioning, right?
Right.
And so what a lot of units do is during summer, they would bring in the what do you call, the portable air conditioning units. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, the window units.
the window units or just movable units or something, right?
Right.
Um, when we were going for Airbnb, for this uh, Olympics, and we searched Airbnb, and they were like the region that the area that we wanted to live in Paris had, like, I want to say 300 400 Airbnbs, maybe even more than 1,000, right? Because it only shows you 300 at a time or something like that, right? And we searched for it, and then the first thing that we did was we filtered for air conditioning, right? Because we were like, we were going to be there for a week. We didn't want to be in a house that did not have air conditioning. It was particularly hot,
Right.
and it was like 8 or 10 Airbnbs that came up that actually had air conditioning, right? And so of course we picked one of them and we booked them, right? Later, what I realized is it was not that the remaining did not have air conditioning. The remaining just forgot to update their Airbnb page
Listings. Yeah.
listings to say, I have air conditioning for summer, because rest of the year they just don't have air conditioning for the summer. right? Because it's a mobile unit that you just bring in for that time of the year, right? And so they didn't go in and check that amenity, nor did they attach a photo which could tell me that they have air conditioning, right? Uh, we actually ended up staying at a place that we actually didn't like, but we just stayed there because it had air conditioning, and that was the key driver for us, right? And this is what we think about when we think about visibility, right? um, you want to be you want to make sure that your listing, which we think of as a storefront, right, is rightly set up, so that when someone's passing by, it is it seems like something that they want to open the door and walk into, right? And so if your listing's not set up the right way, if it is if it is if your images are shoddy, if your text does not talk the right way, if you're missing out on your amenities and whatever else that you can imagine, right? Um, you're going to miss out, and that's the
Right.
visibility problem that we try to solve for folks doing marketing, right? And we do this via actually a fun AI powered tool that we launched last year, right? Which is Listing Optimizer, which essentially looks at your property and compares everything that is happening within that property, right?
Right.
Your images, your text, your amenities, your reviews, and everything else, and looks at market, where the market stands, and gives your property a quality score and tells you what to change about your property, right?
Got it.
Okay, we do largely about text, but we are also thinking, we are also going down the line of what else can we do. And it also gives you,
That's interesting. So the question I would have is like, so even with Listing Optimizer, which I haven't checked out, I think I need to take a look at it, because does it come through and say like, hey, it looks at my listing and it says, okay, I know that your property has these amenities. You don't have it updated, or does it look at the market and say, by the way, if you added a hot tub, you would recognize this, this amount of revenue if you add these amenities. Does it do both, or how does it balance that?
today it does the first, right?
Okay.
But the second is also something that we're building, right? So
Gotcha.
saying, today it does first, right? I see all of your photos and I see you have a hot tub, right? And then I go down in your amenity list and I say, your amenity does not really say hot tub, right?
Right.
uh, or your reviewer said had a fantastic time, and my kids really loved the hot tub, right? But you don't have a single image of the hot tub, right? uh, Clearly your customer profile wants it, right? And you should have images, you should have talked about it, etc., right? But you're right.
No, that's
uh,
great. That's awesome, because I know especially when you get into a larger property manager, because I know that like Cabino is at around 70 properties ish,
yeah.
and it's tough to manage because owners come in and they do fun things like remove amenities but don't tell you.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the hot tub was a pain in my butt, so I got rid of it. Right, and you're like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
Like, you got to tell me. It's all over the pictures.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I can see that working out real well.
yeah, and then the other thing that we do is we work with this fun company, Direct Booking Tools, right now, right?
Yep, I know.
You know them? Yeah. Anyone who uses Direct Booking Tool, we can get the search data that is happening on your website and bring it
Yep.
back into PriceLabs, so that then we know who's looking at your website, right? So even before you start getting bookings, you can already see visibility to saying, oh, I don't know, for July 15th again, I am suddenly starting to see a lot more people on my web pages, right? If I'm seeing that, maybe I just want to be cautious and change my prices. Or
Right.
usually for all of the days in July, I see a certain view trend. But right now, for a couple of weeks, I'm seeing like not enough people are searching for those dates. And if they're not searching for those dates, maybe I want to be slightly lower on the price, just because I want to be more attractive, right? And so those are the two things that we do: a listing optimizer and then bringing in search data on the market.
That's huge. That's huge. Yeah, it's funny. I remember having conversations with Syrian about direct booking tools, and what a unique product. It really is cool. The service they offer too. It's really truly unique. Interestingly enough, so it goes back to when you brought up direct booking tools, I kept thinking to myself about how their their model really by pushing conversion rates higher, right? Like that's really what it's driving. It's driving an increase in already, traffic that's already there at your site.
That's
Um,
right.
but when I think through like the financials, now there's obviously two pieces of financials I think that PriceLabs really, helps. And I think the
Yep.
obvious one is the property manager, right? Like you're helping their financials for sure, and it makes it more consistent
Yeah.
and hopefully more money. But then also when I think through it, the financials of each individual property, it really helps boost the financials for that individual property. And I think
Yeah.
that's a truly that's a great service for folks because there's so many DIYers trying to do it themselves, and I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I feel you, but there is, you will see a return on investment with revenue management for sure.
Totally, totally. And where you're going with the financial side and the growth side, Jamie. When we work with property managers, right? The other thing that we see. So right now, what we have talked about is I have one home, right? And for that home, I want to drive visibility and I want to price it right. So when someone walks in, if the price is right, they book or buy, right? Um, now, where the growth side comes in this that you think about is you think about it in three layers. Number one, anyone who's running a business wants to have some kind of a budget or some kind of a goal, right? And so we create visibility around that. We say, you give us your goal, and we tell you how you're tracking against that goal, not just what's booked, but what we forecast where you're going to be. So if you said, "Oh, I want to, my goal is $3,000 for this month for this home," and you've already booked $2,000, and we would look at the empty dates, we'd look at what's happening in the market, what's happening with your prices, and we'd say with your booking trends, etc., and we'd say, hey, I think we'd end the month at 2,800, or I think we'd end the month at 3,500, whatever it is, right?
Right.
But we create visibility, right? And that's great because with that you know and understand and your finances a little bit better, right? The other thing is it's good that you had a goal of 3,000 and you may have made 3,500, but you also want to benchmark against the market because you had a goal of 3,000 and you made 3,500, but rest of the market made 4,500. Maybe you want to you could have pushed a little bit harder, or maybe your goal was 3,000, you made 2,800, but the rest of the market made 2,000, right? And so even though you felt like, oh, I didn't do as well, but you did much better than relative peers, right? And so that's the other
Right.
place where you want to be conscious about and do the portfolio benchmarking, right? And the last, which is all of this is a single home, what we also consistently heard from property managers is they're looking to grow. So when you were at the 70 property management company, I'm sure it didn't start there at day one, right? It
Right.
probably started there at 10, 15, going to 20, 30, 40, right? And so there's that business development aspect of how do I attract new owners, right? And so that's where we help as well, to helping you figure out what areas are lucrative. And then once you find lucrative areas and once you're talking to an owner, building a pro forma for them to saying, hey, this is how much we can generate based on what's happening in the market, adding nuances that their property management company brings in, right? And thus giving a holistic view of how like that finance function almost in your property management company would work, right? And now as I'm saying this, I just want to be clear, right? uh, every company either has the role of a finance person, or it has someone who's doing the job of a finance person at least, right? And so i
Right.
could be i could be like a two-person property management company. I'm also the maintenance guy, and I'm also the the revenue
Yeah.
manager and the cleaner and etc. But I'm also the finance person. I'm also trying to understand how much money am I making, how much money am I making related to the market, and mostly you're also trying to figure out how do I grow, right? So either you have a finance or a business development function within your company, or you're individually doing it, right? But everyone's looking for that toolkit, and that's what we added as a toolkit on the finance side.
Gotcha. That's awesome. No, I think that is great, and it's such a it's such a unique area because it's like when people I don't know the best way to say it, when I have these conversations with folks, even smaller property managers,
Yeah.
and I ask them about their pricing, they're so apt to follow the flow, especially when it comes
Yeah.
to like Airbnb or VRBO, right? And they're just like, oh, well, yeah, it's got a tool built into it. And I'm just kind of head shaking, like, yeah, about that. Like, they don't care if you make money, just so you know. They care if they make money. They don't
Yeah.
care if you make money. So it's like, people don't get the, who's on their side,
Yeah.
and the value that a company like PriceLabs brings to a property manager, it just can't be overshadowed. I mean, it's terrific what you guys do for people. Interestingly enough, there is another thing that I had seen that would definitely have helped me at that point in time, which is how properties are faring within their comp set, right? So, the Island Park is I'm going to say unique. It's a not unique area, right? All of a sudden you find that it is saturated with 3 and 4 bedroom properties, beautiful $1 million cabins, but there's a lot of them, right? There's actually not as many as like the 1 and 2 bedroom cabins, right? Cuz when they build, they're going to build more bedrooms just to have it. And then it's a dramatic fall off when you get to like 7, 8, up to 10 bedrooms. Um, how do you balance when like when so I've got 70 properties, you look across the portfolio and you can say these 4 are not performing where they need to perform, and how do you report that back to them, to the property
Yeah.
manager?
Um, yeah, that's where this whole portfolio benchmarking that I was talking about comes in, right? We're trying to understand for each property what it should be doing, right? Because it has a custom comp set. When we originally talked about building the model, right? It has a custom comp set. We understand how many large properties exist in that market. How are they faring, right? How have they done historically, and so how should you be doing, right? And if you're deviating too much from that, then we want to figure out why, right? If you're going down, then we notify you. We have a bunch of actions, emails that we notify you on to saying, hey, uh, you've set some constraints in the product and it may not be working, right? Release those constraints, right? You can also look through Portfolio Analytics, which is a tool, a report builder tool that exists in PriceLab, where you can see, oh, how am I doing? How are my competitors doing? How did I do last year, right? And that can help you tweak things along. So yeah, I mean, it's a complex set of actions, right? But I would also say, hopefully, we've tried to take all of that and made it easy to understand within the platform, so that you're not thinking of spending crazy number of hours, or you're not like, oh, I don't understand this. We've tried to make it simple enough
Right.
for everyone to understand.
Yeah, and if you it can't be underplayed, and I'm just going to say this from personal experience. Having PriceLabs do this for you people is hugely helpful, because if you try to do this manually, it sucks having to go in and try to balance it yourself. It sucks. So bring in PriceLabs, let them do it for you the right way, or you will spend lots of hours in a very frustrating session with Airbnb and VRBO. I can guarantee that. Let's pivot the conversation a little bit again. So, I've got you on the hook here, and I promised I'd get you out relatively quickly. But how can utilizing PriceLabs like actually help owner relationships? Like, how does it build retention? How does it like my owners, me too specifically, have a very specific short attention span, right? So
Yeah.
hey, it's not about what you're doing for me now or what you did for me last year. It's what you're doing for me now. So maybe talk a little bit about how, a property manager can use PriceLabs to help build their owner relationships.
Yeah. And Jimmy, that whole owner relationship piece, I think, is probably one that will get the most attention in the next few years here. And the reason why I say
Right.
that is, I think both you and I know there's a bunch happening in the industry, right?
Yes.
Uh, there's a lot happening with how property managers are coming together or separating ways, etc. Right? Lots of private equity money coming in, right?
Yep.
Um, you're also seeing a lot of impact of the AI side of things coming in, right? And we were talking about agentic AI a little bit just before, right?
Yeah.
And so you're seeing all of that impact come in, right? And at that time, there is the human relation just becomes a little bit more critical, right? There are companies that are trying to steal your owners, and your owners are going to places to get their information on some uh, chat GPT to saying, oh, Jamie, my property manager, has not told me why my revenue is lower this year. Tell me, why is it lower this year, and is Jamie doing a good job, right?
Right.
Because they want to know these answers. Uh, they want to know what's happening with their business, right? And someone else is telling them what's happening with their business and stealing them. And so we think the owner relationship becomes a lot more critical, right? And you can think of it as a relationship strategy, but I also think of it as really just a revenue strategy, right? Because
Right.
you can put enough amount of time uh, getting new homes, pricing them right. But if the owner is not feeling like I am there, um, then you're going to lose them, right? And you'll see a churn. Now, the very first part of this, Jamie, which I think is just the foundation and not something that we solve, is the human to human relationship, right? You have to know your owner, you have to understand them, to understand their constraints, right? And that's where I hope and wish, and I think a lot of property managers in the future should excel at, right? Because at the end of the day, this is a human business, right? Not just with the guests, but with the owners, right? They're trusting you with their, I know, $1 million, $250,000, several $1 million homes, right? And also the mortgages that they may have that they need
Right,
to
to
be paid,
cover.
right?
Right,
To cover,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, exactly. You're 100% right. And it's a really it's a strong point, and I want to reiterate this. What you called out about that human element, I think it's a very critical point, right? Because being in the AI world, as deep as I am, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand how the media is really playing this AI song of, oh, it's going to take away all this stuff, right? It's going to take jobs, it's going to do this and why. And I'll tell you right now, there is no AI created, nor will there be anytime soon, that can have a conversation with a property or with a homeowner to retain them.
Yeah.
It just won't. I mean, you can get something that might be a chatbot, you can get something that might be a voice, but until you have that human interaction and you can physically have conversations with another human being, that's not going to get replaced. You know what I mean? But you can give yourself the tools to have a better conversation, and I think that's
That's
really critical, because that's where PriceLabs comes in. I mean, it gives you the tools to say, here are the levers, right? Here are the levers. Here's how it's going to work. And I've
100.
actually had that conversation with revenue management with homeowners to say, you can leave us and go to somebody else, and they might act like
That's
they know,
yeah.
but they don't.
Yeah. No, absolutely right. So we can't solve for that human to human interaction, right? But what we can solve for is exactly like you said, right? And what we solve for is we empower you so that you can have a better, meaningful, more trusted conversation, right? And
Right.
in our world, trust comes from uh, being able to share data transparently and share your understanding of what's happening transparently, right? And so when we think of owner relations, we think of two paths, right? We think of you should be able to show how you did historically relative to the competitors, right? But equally, you should be able to show, hey, here is where we think we are going, or alert them in advance to saying, hey, this year we think July is going to be a little softer because of this market dynamics. And we're doing everything,
Right.
but just FYI, right? You don't want to do that on July 31st to saying, oh, by the way, we didn't make
Yeah,
you
this
as
month
much
sucked.
money.
Just so
Yeah,
you know.
this month was not great. You don't want to do that on July 1st, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you know that on, let's say, June 1st already or July 1st already, right? And so
Right.
we make those tools available for you so that you can say what's happening, why it's happening. We of course make it such that you can, it's in your brand colors, your brand voice, your language, you communicate, right? You're the You're the owner of the relationship, but we provide those tools to you to make it easier to manage that relationship.
No, it makes a ton of sense. That makes an absolute ton of sense. But I'll tell you what, Richie, like I've kept you on this call for more than time than you'd committed. And I know you're a busy guy. I just want to just do two things. One, I'm just going to tell people, please, if you like this conversation and you're learning something from it, like, subscribe, follow us, please. Shoot us some notes in the comments. We do follow up with everybody. Richie, one more time, like, give me the pitch. Why PriceLabs? Why is PriceLabs better than everybody else? And I won't argue.
Yeah, for sure. See, we're today living in a real-time world, right? And the data is moving faster than ever, right? The tokens are moving faster than ever, let's say, right?
Yes, they are.
And so you can't be static in this world. Your pricing has to move fast, but it's not the only lever that you need to move fast, right? Every time a night remains unsold, that inventory is just lost. You're not going to get that revenue back, right? Nor are you going to see your dates that you've lost, the lower price bookings that you've gotten. You're not going to see that, right? So pricing is moving faster than ever. You need to adapt things. Your people are at your owner's doorsteps to take their contracts. You need to adapt, right? And
Right.
and you want to make sure your visibility is higher than ever, because people are coming from all various places. You're going into chat gpt and searching for I want so and so vacation rental, right? And so with that all said and done, that's where we come in. We come in as that integrated layer. We do pricing, but we also help you with your visibility. We also help you understand how you're doing on your financials. And then ultimately, we help you or give you tools to talk to your owners a little bit better, right? Thus, hopefully, preserving your revenue and growing your revenue. I hope that works.
Folks, it doesn't get better than that. Honest to God, Richie, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate having you here. I know it's pushing towards nighttime for you, and man, I tell you, it's been a blessing to have you here. So thanks so much for joining.
Super. Thank you so much for having me, Jamie. Not sure if you noticed, but as we went through this podcast, it got a little darker around me. And so the light got a little brighter around me.
I just assume so, since it's like a 12-hour difference.
Yeah.
It's already 10 o'clock here. So
Yeah, it's not too bad.
well, I tell you what.
7 p.m. here, so it's not too bad, but yeah.
All right. Thanks again, Richie. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye.
Welcome y'all to the VRNation station. We're diving deep into vacation rental sensations. From management tips to the latest creation, join us each week for some sparkle and conversation. VRNation station, tune in and feel the thrill.